Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, if you had to coach someone who only had 3 hours per week to dedicate to fitness, exactly how would you structure their training and nutrition to get the best possible results? That's an easy one for me. I work with a lot of people who only train in the gym for 3 hours a week. Okay. Actually, the majority of my in-house roster trains in the gym 3 times per week. They don't really go and do workouts on their own. So, as far as their training is concerned, I'll usually put together a training split for people who are on a 3 day training split where it would be chest and back day one, shoulders, biceps, and triceps day two, and quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and abs day three. Now, obviously, that can change depending on the person I'm working with, their fitness level, what their goals are, health history, gender, age, etc. But I find a structured program with a 3 day split in that type of capacity works best. All right. Because you've got your agonist versus antagonist muscles groups, chest first back on day one, your shoulders, biceps, triceps on day two, and then you have your quadriceps, hamstring, glutes, and then throw in abs for day three. Right. How I would structure that program too, I try to do it like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or maybe like a Monday, Thursday, Saturday. So you at least get 1 or 2 days off in between each workout. Okay. That usually works best for most people. As far as the nutrition component is concerned, nutrition is huge here. So I don't believe in having cheat days. I've talked about this in the past. I think cheat days are detrimental to one's health. I do believe in incorporating cheat meals when and where it's necessary, more for the psychological benefit than the physical benefit. A lot of people like to go out for restaurants or have social events they have to go to or meetings with work meetings or with employees or with their bosses or with clients. And I understand that. So what I typically do with most people is I'll give a little bit of flexibility or more with their diet and say, okay, you can have 1 to 3 cheat meals a week. Again, they could have 10 cheat meals a week, but it depends on how fast they want to achieve their goals. If someone's coming to work with me and says, hey, I need to lose 30 pounds, I'm like, well, you're going to lose 30 pounds a lot quicker if you scale back on the cheat meals and you really clean up your diet. All right. So that's why I don't believe in cheat days. I believe in cheat meals and trying to dial in that diet to, at least 85, 90% most part. But I don't believe in changing up the diet on training days versus non-training days. I think consistency works best for the body. So even for myself, on the days that I don't train, I still eat the same. The only thing I might skip is my post-workout meal because I'm not working out, but that's about it. I still keep meal 1 through 6 the same. And then usually on the days I train, I have 7 meals, which includes my post-workout meal. Okay, so that's the only thing I change for people who on the days that they're not training. But that's it. So if you keep your diet 85, 90% clean, put together a proper structured training split where you're in the gym and you're training muscle groups that complement each other. So you're not putting like chest and shoulders together. You're not putting back and biceps together. I know those are very popular muscle groups people like to train together. But if you follow me over the years, you know I'm a huge advocate of incorporating muscle groups that are agonists versus antagonists together. Okay. I find that works best for most people. So that's what I would do. Sorry, 1 second. My screen just popped open there. All right, I'm back. That's what I would do when it comes to putting together a 3 day structured training program along with a nutritional plan. All right. Okay, next question. Nick, I've been told I need to listen to my body, something I say to people all the time. So maybe you've heard it from me. But sometimes my body just wants to stay on the couch. How do you know the difference between needing rest and just making excuses? I can tell you 9 times out of 10, most people are just making excuses. As I've talked about in the past, I've yet to meet anyone who's anywhere close to overtraining. Very rarely do I come across someone who's just overtrained. Yes, if you're an athlete or a bodybuilder and you're in the gym 7 days a week, 2 hours a day, and you're on a very strict dietary nutrition plan, yeah, you're at risk of overtraining for sure. You might need a refeed meal. You might need a cheat meal. You might need a day off from the gym, a day off from cardio. Yeah. because you're at risk of overtraining. But the average person is nowhere close to overtraining. Now, you could be tired from other things in your life. You could be tired from your job. You could be tired from your kids, right? Maybe you're not sleeping well. So those could be other outside factors that obviously sometimes you can't control. But for the most part, what I try to get my clients to do, both my in-house clients and my online clients, is to focus more on building good habits as opposed to focus on trying to get the motivation to go to the gym, to eat clean. All right. So you want to build on those habits. You want to build on good habits. And that takes time and that takes effort and that takes discipline. And I put up a post on this on my Instagram last week about it's a mistake to rely on motivation. And you should be more focused on building those good habits over a period of time, which means that you have to be consistent. And that's the hardest part. But the more that you practice that habit, whether it's cooking your own meals, portioning out your own meals, going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, the more that you do those repetitive motions over and over again, it becomes easier to keep those habits. And then when all of a sudden you miss a workout, when you know you're supposed to work out that day, it feels like something's missing from your day. All of a sudden, when you miss 2 or 3 of your clean meals and you substitute them for takeout food, Uber Eats, again, it's almost like you feel a little guilty because now you're not as disciplined. So a lot of people notice when they start to build on these good habits and they're able to maintain and sustain the lifestyle, as soon as they break a habit or if they forget or something comes up in their day and they're too busy or they're sick, it does feel like something's missing. Okay. So my recommendation for anyone who lacks that motivation to get to the gym, stop relying on motivation. Stop right now. All right. Focus on building the habit. So for you, the habit could be, look, I really don't want to go to the gym today, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my shoes, I'm going to put on my shorts, my t-shirt, and I'm going to walk or drive to the gym, and I'm just going to go to the gym for maybe 15 minutes. So you're making these little negotiations with yourself. I'm just going to go to the gym 15 minutes. I'm going to do maybe 3 or 4 sets. I'm going to leave. Maybe I'll do 10 minutes of cardio. Okay. But chances are once you're there, well, I'm already there. Well, maybe I'll do 6 sets more. Maybe I'll add on another maybe 10 sets. Maybe I'll do 30 minutes of cardio. And what happens is you start to build that habit. Okay. Because most people will tell you the hardest part is getting yourself to the gym. Once you're in the gym, you're there. Okay. But if you make those little negotiations with yourself, and instead of thinking, oh my God, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta spend an hour at the gym, then I gotta go home and shower, I gotta prep my meal. Don't overwhelm yourself. Step by step, one step at a time. All right. Right now, the goal is just to get myself to the gym. If I spend 15 minutes, great. If I spend 30 minutes, even better. If I'm there for a good 45, 15-minute workout, fantastic. But if I'm not going to beat myself up over it because I'm still making a small change. Instead of sitting on the couch, I still moved. I still got myself to that gym, right? Yeah, maybe it wasn't the best workout. Last week I was recovering from a pretty severe stomach virus. And my last 4 workouts since I've been back in the gym, they haven't been the best. I've been honestly as weak as a kitten. But I also know my body is fighting off something right now. I'm on antibiotics, so I don't feel the best. But I also know that it's important for me to get my body moving again. But I'm not going to go into the gym and start trying to set personal records. I'm not going to do that. I'm not an idiot. I don't want to hurt my body more. So I'm listening to my body and I'm making sure that I'm being strategic with how I'm training. So I'm still training hard, but I'm not training at like 90% intensity. I'm training probably at about 70% right now. But every day I'm getting a little stronger. I'm resting a little less. I'm sleeping a little bit more. I'm making sure I'm staying hydrated. So I'm doing everything I possibly can to make my next workout even better. All right. So you have to be strategic with how you implement your exercises, and you have to be strategic to how you're going to approach your workouts and your dietary nutritional plan. Okay. But stop relying on motivation and start focusing on the consistency factor and building on those good habits. All right. Okay. Nick, if you looked at my physique for 30 seconds, what are the first things you'd notice that tell you how I train or where I'm making mistakes? Honestly, I would need to look at your physique for longer than 30 seconds because it's really hard to just look at a physique and go, well, you're overweight, so you must not train hard. Not true. There's a lot of people who are overweight, but they do train hard. But for all you know, they have a terrible diet. There's a lot of people out there who go to the gym and they train every day, but they've got a belly. It's because their diet is out of whack, right? So their diet's not dialed in. So you can't just look at a physique and just assume that they're not trained hard enough or they're not disciplined with their diet or maybe they train too hard or maybe don't eat enough. It's very hard to assess just by looking at a physique. But when I look at like postural misalignments, for example, if I look at someone who's like hunchback and like this. A lot of guys are guilty of this. I can tell right now that they're not really focusing on their back. They're focusing on more on pressing movements. If someone comes to work with me and they're sitting like this, I can tell that they do a lot of chest movements, but they neglect their back, which is very common for a lot of men. They want to train the show muscles, the chest and the biceps. So they neglect the back muscles, the lats, the rhomboids, the scapula, the triceps. So I can see muscular imbalances with people. So I most likely will have an idea that they're neglecting or they're not giving as much priority to certain muscle groups. If I look at another guy and I can tell that their legs are really skinny, but their upper body is huge, there's a good chance, unless they have a genetic disorder, that they probably don't train their legs. And I see a lot of guys like that too. Okay. But just by looking at a physique, it doesn't give me enough information. There's not enough data. That's why I ask questions. So whenever I get a new client, I ask questions. You talk to any of my clients, either in-house or online, they'll tell you I ask a lot of questions because the more answers I have, the better off I'm going to be able to put together a customized training program and nutrition plan that's going to work for the individual that I'm working with. All right. As opposed to a cookie cutter generic plan that's designed for the masses. All right. So, but it's very difficult just to look at a physique and go, well, you probably do this or you probably don't do this. What I'd rather do is look at the physique and ask questions. And I can say, okay, well, you do look like you have some muscle, but for example, if I see some muscular imbalances and I see that they have smaller legs but a bigger upper body, if it's a guy, or if it's a woman and I see that they've got this great lower body, but they've got flabby arms, I'm like, yeah, you're probably neglecting your arms, which a lot of women are guilty of. They'll train their lower body 3 or 4 times a week, but they'll neglect their upper body and maybe just do a little bit of biceps, triceps, and shoulders. Forget about chest. Don't want to get a muscular chest. Another misconception. And, some back work, but not to the degree that they'll focus on the glutes and the hamstrings, right? The butt. So, it really depends on the individual. So to look at a physique and just have an idea of what someone is doing or not doing, I can't do that. And I really don't think any trainer can do that. I think if they're telling you that, it's bullshit because you really don't know. Someone could be doing everything they possibly can in the gym, like I said, and maybe just it's their diet that they're not as disciplined with, or they don't know anything about dietary nutrition. All right. I was like that for the first 3 years I trained. I didn't know a thing about diet. I'd go to the gym, I'd train really hard. But then my post workout would be like Frosted Flakes and milk. I had no idea about protein powders. I had no idea about chicken breasts and rice and none of that stuff. Okay. So the more that you can help someone by incorporating, or sorry, the more you can help someone as far as building a better physique, becoming more healthier and fit, the way I do that is by asking questions, not just by looking at someone's physique. All right. Because looks don't tell the whole story, period. I don't care what experienced coach or trainer says, you have to ask questions because that's going to give you the full story. All right. Okay. Nick, if someone has been overweight for most of their life, does their body actually fight harder to stay fat than someone who's always been lean? Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so if you've been overweight your entire life, there's a good chance you're the body type, what we call an endomorph, someone who puts on weight very easily and has a hard time losing weight. Okay, so what I mean by weight, though, is you'll put on fat very easily, but you also put on muscle very easily. It's just the way that your metabolism is set up. You have a slower metabolism, so you don't need as much food to build muscle. Someone who is an ectomorph, someone who's just naturally very lean, you look at those people who their whole life they've been super skinny where they can eat whatever they want and they still stay skinny. That's what we call an ectomorph. Those people have the ability to lose fat very quickly, but on the other side, they have the ability to lose muscle very quickly. So they usually have to eat a lot of food just to build and maintain muscle. Right? Because they have a faster metabolism. So once you understand the type of body type you are, whether you're an endomorph or an ectomorph, then you can work with your genetics, your body type, and your lifestyle and your fitness level and put together a structured meal plan with a training program that's going to complement that meal plan. And that's what I try to do working with every individual I work with. I do work with some people who have told me their whole life they've been overweight. I also work with people who've been skinny their whole life. I work with people who were skinny when they were younger and now they put on weight as they get older. And that's comes back to that last question, why I ask questions. If I work with someone who comes to work with me and say, Nick, I need to lose 100 pounds, I go, and I'll ask them, like, have you been overweight your entire life? And they'll say, oh, no. When I was like in my 20s, I had ripped abs, no problem. My body fat was below 10%. I'm a guy and like Okay, so you have the ability to get lean again. So you are naturally an ectomorph who just turned into an endomorph because you went to shit on your diet. And that happens too sometimes. Especially if people get older. A lot of people think the metabolism slows down. And I talked about this briefly last week on the Q&A that your metabolism doesn't slow down with age. What happens is you yourself slow down with age. You become more sedentary. You sit instead of walk. You drive everywhere, right? You instead of walking places. Instead of like maybe making your meals or eating something a little bit healthier, it's a little bit more convenient to just order out or go to a nice restaurant. Maybe you're making more money, so you're going more for the convenience factor. Maybe you have a higher stress job than you did in your 20s now. You have more responsibilities, so it's easier to skip the gym. Right. But you're making more money now, so you can afford the finer things in life, maybe the nicer wines, the nicer restaurants, like I said. So, it's comfort food, right? Comfort alcohol, just comfort overall. So I truly believe when people put on weight as they get older, it has nothing to do with the metabolism. Sometimes it can be hormonal imbalances for sure, but more often than not, in my experience, it's just people start becoming more sedentary. They slow down themselves, okay? They have more wear and tear on their bodies, so they get tired. They don't want to exert as much energy, so they hold back, and then the weight comes on. So to answer that question, if you are someone who has been an endomorph for your entire life, someone who has naturally been overweight, yes, in a sense, it's going to be more challenging for you to lose that weight. But here's where you enter lifting weights. Once you start incorporating weight training on a regular basis, 3 to 5 times a week, you're going to add more muscle onto your frame. When you add more muscle onto your frame, guess what? Now your metabolism starts to speed up. You start to exert more energy. You burn more calories in a rested state. And this is why I've talked about for 20 plus years, if you're trying to lose fat, the best way to do it is by incorporating resistance training on a regular basis, not cardiovascular training. Still do cardiovascular training for overall heart health. And if you want to fast track your results, yes, cardio will definitely help you fast track your results for fat loss. But it's the resistance training that will allow you to sustain the fat loss. Because again, the more muscle you're carrying, the more calories you're going to burn in a rested state. All right. And that's why when people come to work with me who are overweight and have said to me, I've struggled with my weight my entire life, and I'll ask them, like, how often do you do resistance training? Nah, not very often. I mean, I did it for a few months, or maybe I used to do it in my 30s and I got injured. And more often than not, they're not doing it consistently. They might do it every once in a while, but they're not doing it religiously. And when I get them on a program and they're starting doing a proper training split, like say that 3 day training split, I talked about chest and back day one, shoulders and arms day two, quads, hamstrings, glutes, and abs day three. We put that together. They follow that for 3 months. Wow, the weight has come down, and they're actually keeping the weight off, and they're not starving themselves because they need that food to build the muscle. All right. So I've said it time and time again, if you want to lose body fat, you need to be lifting weights. Because if you just rely on cardio and diet alone, what's going to happen when you stop doing that cardio? Let's say, if you're doing an hour of cardio a day, and let's say you stop for 2 weeks, you go on vacation, you're going to put weight on because you don't have any muscle. Okay. Whereas if you're doing the cardio with the weights and you say, I'm taking 2 weeks off from vacation, guess what? You still have the muscle. You're not going to lose that muscle in 2 weeks. It's very hard to lose muscle that quickly. So you're not going to gain any weight because you're still carrying that muscle mass. Okay. So again, it's being working smarter as opposed to harder. I want to be clear here. I'm not saying don't do cardio. I think cardio is excellent. It's great for your heart health. But if you're relying on cardio to burn fat and to keep that fat off for life, that is a huge mistake that's going to backfire in your face. All right. Okay. Nick, if two people followed the exact same workout and diet for a year, what would be the biggest reasons one person ends up with dramatically better results? Genetics. So let's say we take person A and person B, all right, and they're at the same level to start, and they're training the exact same program, like you said, exact same diet, and they're training hard in the gym and they're staying disciplined with their diet. So neither one of them's cheating on the diet, they're going to the gym every day. They will get fairly different results, and that's because of their genetics. All right. So if you have two people and they look very similar. Maybe they're similar body types. Genetics still play a role. One person might put on more muscle in their upper body. One person might put on more muscle in their lower body. One person might lose fat faster from their face. One person might lose fat faster from their waist. So you can't pick and choose your genetics. But if those same two people are following the same program, they will get to the same result at the end of the program. So with that goal, say those same two people are starting at 250 pounds and they want to lose 50 pounds, they'll both eventually lose those 50 pounds if they're doing everything correctly. But how that's going to look on each person at 200 pounds can look very different because if you're just looking to lose weight, again, that's a mistake. Losing weight could be losing muscle, could be losing water and fat. Well, let's keep the muscle, let's keep the water, and let's just lose the fat. And in order to do that, you have to focus on your macronutrient rotations, which I do with my nutritional plans. And again, though, if I'm working with those same two people, they're going to hit different obstacles. Person A might hit an obstacle 2 weeks in. Person B might not hit an obstacle till maybe 6 months in. And unfortunately, that's just genetics. And working with an experienced coach who works with both person A and person B can troubleshoot and go, okay, I know why we're hitting this plateau. We need to do this. Or if your coach is transparent with you and says, I don't know why we're hitting this plateau. And I've said that to clients for numerous years. I've said to them, I'm like, I don't know why we hit this obstacle, but we're going to figure it out together. And we will. And I've always been very transparent with my clients. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell them, I'm like, I don't know the answer right now, but I'm going to do my best to figure it out and figure out why this is not working for you. And together we figure out a solution, and we always figure out a solution. Because my clients, I think they appreciate that I'm so transparent with them. And when I don't know something, I'm going to tell them I don't know. But they also know I'm going to do everything in my power to figure out the solution. So, we hit that plateau, we're going to surpass it. It might take us a few weeks, but we're going to surpass it. We're going to figure out what's going on here. We're going to go back in our notes, troubleshoot. Maybe we need to give you a refeed meal. Maybe we need to decrease your cardio. Maybe we need to increase your frequency in the gym as far as resistance training. Okay. But we will get you there. Excuse me. So to answer that question, yes, you can put two people on the same diet plan, training program. They do everything perfect, but more likely than not, they're going to get different results at different times. But again, if both people are following the same road, they're both going to achieve the results that they want to achieve because they're doing everything in their power to get there. All right. So they will lose those 50 pounds. But like I said, I always think it's a mistake to just pick a number because you don't know what that 50 pounds is going to look like. You might not actually need to lose 50 pounds. You might need to lose 30 pounds of fat and need to put on 10 pounds of muscle. Now, if you've done that, you've actually only lost 20 pounds. But hey, all of a sudden your body composition has changed. You've lost maybe 8% body fat. You've put on size in your arms. So that to me is a win. You've transformed your body composition. So we forgot about just the number. And instead, we're focusing on, hey, my clothes fit better. Hey, I went from a size 38 in jeans. Now I'm a size 30. Holy crap, you went down 8 sizes. That's great, right? You're losing inches on your waist. Who cares if you've only lost 20 pounds? Doesn't matter. Okay. So switch your mindset around that. And again, don't try to focus on what someone else is doing. And whatever you do, I strongly don't recommend following generic cookie cutter plans that you follow online because what's going to happen is it's going to start working at first for you, as it always does, because you're changing your diet. Most people, when they change their diet for the better, they see change within the first 2 or 3 weeks on the scale. Maybe they lose a few inches on their waist. The problem is, though, when you hit a plateau, what are you going to do? Because the cookie cutter diet is just going to tell you, oh, keep cutting calories. The cookie cutter training program is going to say, well, add more time to the gym, add more time to cardio, which more often than not is not the answer. More exercise, less food is going to backfire in your face, just like the other question. It will. Okay. Because you can't keep doing that. That's not sustainable. What are you going to be doing in the gym for 3 hours and eating 1,000 calories a day? Good luck with that. Okay. You want to really screw up your metabolism and have metabolic massacre? Go ahead, follow that program. Instead, focus on being strategic with your training program and your nutrition plan. Don't just start taking out calories and adding more exercise. Okay. I know that seems like it's going to work, and at first it will, but you're going to burn out your receptors. You're going to get adrenal fatigue yourself. You're going to hit a plateau. You're going to become frustrated. You're going to quit, and then all the weight comes back on again, and you lose all that muscle. Okay. Big waste of time. Train smart, eat smart, and you're going to get the results. Okay. Last question here. Okay. Nick, what's the biggest lie people tell themselves when they say they've tried everything to lose fat or build muscle? Well, more often than not, again, they haven't tried everything. There's so many times I've had people come work with me and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I do so much cardio. I do so much weights. I'm in the gym all the time. I pretty much live in the gym. I meal prep. And say, okay, send me 3 days of what your current diet looks like. And I get diets sent to me, and it's not that the food is bad, it's just that the portions are out of control. If you're eating two and a half, 3 cups of rice and you're trying to lose weight, even though I don't have a problem with rice, white rice, black rice, brown rice, I have no problem with rice. But guess what? If you're eating 3 cups of it in one sitting, that's like 150 grams of carbs. That's going to get stored as body fat. So, and I wrote a blog about this last week. If you haven't checked that out, go to the website, check it out. I posted a blog about even if you eat too much healthy food, you're going to be in a caloric surplus. If you're in an extreme caloric surplus and you're not burning those calories or you don't have the muscle mass to burn those calories, you're going to get fat. All right. So you can't just think because a food is labeled as healthy that you can have unlimited amounts of it. You can't. That's a big mistake. If you've truly done everything or you think you've done everything, my recommendation to you, hire a coach. Hire an experienced coach because I can guarantee you if this coach is experienced, knowledgeable, reputable, tons of Google reviews, okay, tons of testimonials, and you have trust. You've spoken with this coach. He or she seems knowledgeable when it comes to exercise science, when it comes to dietary nutrition, when it comes to building muscle and losing fat. That person is going to be able to look at your nutrition plan, see red flags, look at your training program, see red flags, and they're going to give you feedback. And if you can check your ego at the door, you're going to listen to that person and they're going to help you make those changes. I remember years ago, I was training for a bodybuilding show and I hit a plateau and I hired a coach, someone I had worked with years prior, sent him everything I was doing, sent him my photos. And the first thing he said to me, he said, no gym for 3 days. He says, I want you to have a cheat meal each day of those 3 days as well. One cheat meal. Stick to your diet, but one added cheat meal. I'm like 3 weeks out from a show at this point. I'm thinking, are you insane? I'm telling you, I can't lose fat. I'm telling you that I'm tired. I'm telling you that I'm irritable. I'm telling you that I have no energy. And you're telling me don't go to the gym. You're telling me to eat cheat meals. But I listened because I checked my ego. I'm like, you know what? I've hired this person for a reason. They're reputable. They're knowledgeable. They're experienced. And in the past, they got me from point A to point B. So I'm going to put my trust in this person. Worked. 3 days later, I was leaner. I felt rested. I felt mental clarity. I felt great to go back in the gym. And I killed those last 3 weeks of my prep. No problem. I actually won that show. Well, I won my class, not the overalls. So I shouldn't take credit for winning the show. I won my class, which was still pretty good. So there's a lot of guys in that class. But for me, if I had kept doing what I was doing, I was just going to keep cutting my food, doing more cardio. And that goes back to the last question. More exercise, less food is not always the answer. All right. So when people say they've done everything, in my opinion, they've done everything except work with an experienced coach. And once you work with that experienced coach, that's going to help take your physique and your fitness to that next level because you probably have done everything in your mind. But now you need someone else's perspective, someone who maybe has a little bit more experience than you, or who has worked with other people who are facing similar or who have faced similar issues that you're facing, whether it be not losing enough fat or building enough muscle, or you are suffering from adrenal fatigue. And they can actually coach you because a good coach will coach you and explain to you and guide you on how to surpass this plateau that you've hit. All right. So the most important thing I would say to this is check your ego at the door. If you have an ego, this is not going to work. Even to this day, I still bounce ideas off some of my buddies who train. I do because I always like to know, and I always like to know, keep myself updated in the fitness industry. A lot of people come to me now asking me about peptides. I didn't know a thing about peptides 6 months ago, but I'm learning more and more because more and more people are asking me about peptides. So I'm educating myself. I'm asking people questions. I'm Googling information on certain drugs so I understand, so I can have a good understanding. I might not have as great of an understanding as I do about anabolic steroids, but have a good general basic understanding. So when someone asks me a question, I can give them an educated response. All right. And I think that's important. I think any good coach that cares about their clients and cares about growing their business will continue to evolve with their education. Okay. And is not afraid to ask questions if they don't know the answers. So when it comes to anything, whether it be dietary nutrition or training programs, if you truly feel that you've done everything in your power, the next thing you need to do is hire a coach. And I guarantee you, as long as that coach is reputable, knowledgeable, and experienced, that coach is going to help you surpass the plateau you've hit. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, August the 3rd, BC Day here in British Columbia, which is a holiday. But as most people know, I do not take holidays. The reason this video is going out so late is I've been on the floor for the past 12 hours straight today. So it's still going out though. I try my best not to miss these episodes. I've been a little bit guilty of missing some of my YouTube shorts this week, but I was pretty laid up last week, pretty sick in bed. So it was hard for me to film content. Anyway, this week I'm feeling better. Knock on wood, I stay feeling better so I can keep pumping out content. Just dropped a YouTube short today. Check it out. It's a video of my rooftop deck, which is almost done. That's going to piss Haley off because she always says it is done, but it's almost done. But check it out if you want to see my rooftop deck. Summer here in BC, so everything's looking good up there. Yeah, but if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com. DM me on my Instagram, fitcosgrove_. If you're looking to work with an online coach, I'm always looking to work with people. I work with people all over North America. I actually have a few clients in Japan as well. My in-house roster here in BC is full at the moment. However, I do have a few spots in my small group classes, and we have a gym that we train clients out of downtown Vancouver. So if you're visiting downtown Vancouver and you want to drop in for a group class, hit me up, send me a DM. We do drop-in rates. Happy to work with you. Even if you have some ideas that you want to bounce off me with your supplement protocol, I'm always happy to help people just to make sure you do things in a safe and effective manner. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. It does motivate me to keep pumping out this content on a regular basis. And yeah, if you can like and subscribe, share, I really do appreciate it. Okay, all the support really helps. Anyway, I will see you all next week. Or actually, no, I'll see you all on Wednesday for this week's coaching reality. So Wednesday is next episode. Thank you all again, and I'll see you all on Wednesday. Bye for now.